Alrighty, welcome again and welcome to this demo. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about Tern, and to just introduce you first to the business. Tern is an incredible platform that was built by a trio of amazing co-founders who really, in their own process of understanding the industry and better trying to get a better sense of where they could, really help better and build technology that could really, really improve it. They realized that there was so much opportunity to just really lean into helping advisors and agency owners really build a fully integrated system that works in your business. One of the things that they noticed when building Turn and starting the business was that there's just a ton of invisible work as advisors, right? You spend a lot of time doing like this like admin ad hoc type work. And so for a lot of us that might be coming here today, you might be thinking, yeah, I spent a lot of time sending emails and tracking tasks and to-do lists and workflows and all of these things. That was one of the main problems that our co-founders saw and really sought out to improve, amongst many other things. But the way that Turn has been built is to really help remove that kind of invisible work for you as a business owner, but then also similarly, just help reduce the amount of things that you have to think about and like do a lot of this like automatically for you. And so when I step you through the business here today, a lot of what I'm going to show you, it just has that kind of underlying theme that everything's interconnected, that we really try to make everything as seamless as possible for you, and that we end the invisible work epidemic that goes on in this industry. All right, going to share my screen here and kick things off. Feel free to throw questions in the chat or in the Q&A section, and we'll try to address them as we go. Well, this is the initial lay of the land in the Tern platform when you first log in. Now, of course, obviously you wouldn't have trips in there. This is my account, but this is what it looks like when you log in right directly into Tern. Just to give you guys a little bit of an orientation here, you'll see up top you have that kind of navigation bar that takes you through your trips, your tasks, email, library, contacts, you name it. You also down here have a few different stages of different, basically places as to where your business, where your trips are at, excuse me. Alrighty. Now, I'm seeing my internet's unstable. Hopefully you guys are hearing me okay. Let me know if you are not, but I'm going to keep rolling if we're good. Okay. So you'll see here, these are all of the trips that I currently have going on in my business. You'll see there's inbound, planning, booked, and traveling statuses. This is almost to show you the status of where booking or your trips are at any given time in your business. This is amazing, not just for understanding where in general your trips are, but also understanding what has to come next, where their different statuses are. But also you'll see something down here. Let me show you an example. Something called your tasks. You're going to see, like I mentioned, everything's integrated across the Tern platform. And one of those instances is where you have these tasks. And one of the fun features that I love showing is that in Tern, most things are drag and drop. So let's say this demo trip from South Africa is an inbound inquiry, but I actually am now in the planning stage for this trip. I could literally just drag and drop this trip into the next stage. Now, what's so great about that too is that if I set up my business beforehand to make sure that I have different tasks and automations and workflows set up, when I drag and drop a trip from a different status, it could actually trigger a bunch of different things for me, meaning letting me know which tasks are now on my to-do list. It'll automatically create and put tasks on your to-do list. You'll also have emails that you could set up to be automatically sent out. This is especially helpful when you're going from like planning to booked or you're returning back from traveling. So again, just a kind of note take here that anytime you move something to a different stage, it's actually literally moving it along in your overall broader business workflow. So when we look at this platform, it's not all just, kind of what meets the eye, a lot of it here too to make it super integrated. Now, if looking at that gets you super overwhelmed and you're like, oh my goodness, there seems like there's a lot to set up here, I'm going to work you through and show you kind of how we've made this such a simple and seamless platform. But I will say that you can use this platform to whatever extent you like. If you really just want to use it for the itinerary piece and sharing it with clients and collecting credit card authorizations, that's great. If you want to become the Tern expert and use every little feature we've created, that's great too. But I just want to make sure that you understand that you can use as much or as little as the Tern platform as you like, and it'll be still incredibly useful for you no matter what stage you feel you're at. With that, I also want to show you that you do have the ability to also filter and display different things you can show in lists. You can also filter out what you want to show based on, we have a lot of group trips that I'm going to show you here today. You can hide your sub trips here. I'll explain what that means in a bit, but you can really just kind of adjust your settings here as to what you see at any given time. All right, now I'm going to actually take you through the process of creating a trip in Tern. when we do this process, let me actually share my, oops, go back here and I can show you the form. Actually, give me 1 second. I'm going to pause my screen so I can pull up this particular thing without showing you the keys to the castle just yet. Alrighty. So I'm going to show you an example as if I was an active traveler actually looking to work with a travel advisor, you. Sharing my screen here again. You can see here that we have these client inquiry forms that share different details about that give you the opportunity to actually create an inquiry for the travel advisor you're working for. Now, these forms, you can create these are custom. You can add in as much or as little detail as you like. And also you can embed these on your website. You can just share them as a link, send them in an email, you name it. This is entirely customizable. This is actually a form that I've created in my business. So what I was showing you here earlier was something that I actually had created from our library details that we created. And I actually, now as a traveler, I'm going to fill this out and just show you an example as a traveler who might be interested in working with you, the travel advisor. So my name is Grace, if you haven't figured that out already. And I'm actually going to put in my email. Now, something to note here, and something that's one of the most incredible parts of the platform, is that when you input your details from your, inquiry form, if I'm a customer that's already booked with you, and I actually use the same information that I've used before, my email, etc., it'll actually just add this trip to your contact as a person. So we're not just duplicating contacts all the time. So long as you use the right email and information, but we'll make sure that you guys can, not have to redo all this information that you're inputting. I'll put in my phone number here. You guys can give me a call anytime you like now that you have it. Alrighty. Actually, let me just show you here now what it looks like once it's submitted since we're here. So once you submit that form, it'll show up here in the inbound section of your dashboard here. So this is one that I filled out before earlier, and you can see all the different versions of different inbound trips that I have going on. But we're going to quickly look at this Jupiter trip. When someone fills out that form, it literally automatically links to your dashboard and it'll create an inbound trip for you. Now, if you're like, I've been working with this client for so many years and I'm not quite at the point where, I want them to be filling out a form every time they want to work with me, you can also just manually create that right here. So you can create a new trip and fill out all those details here and get things started there, which is exactly what I'm going to do. All right, I'm going to take a quick look at questions real quick and just answer these since I'm here. Make sure we get to any questions really quickly. All right, we have a question about insurance. We'll get to that in just a bit when we go over to those tabs. All right, Deborah, looks like you have a question about pricing. We'll actually be able to show you that in there soon. So hopefully that'll be useful to show you what that looks like when you're adding in pricing from a supplier. First, I'm going to create this trip that I wanted to show you guys. Let's do a cruise to, I did Bermuda on my last demo today, so let's do a different one. Let's do a river cruise, but I'm not sure quite yet where I want to go. So cruise in Europe. We can always edit this later. I'm not super original with my trip names. I apologize. But let's do kind of like maybe a Christmas market cruise and do something over the December period. We can now create this trip manually, and you'll see this is kind of the main dashboard that you see when you have just created initially that trip. Same thing applies if a trip has filled out that client has filled out that form, but now you'll actually see in full detail, this is what it looks like when nothing's been added. Now, when I filled out that form originally, you'll actually see if I use that same email address, my client information would actually show up right here. Because I didn't fill out the form here, that wouldn't necessarily pop up right away, but I can actually just search my name and it'll pre-populate in. And I'm also just gonna add my husband to come with us because why not? Let's take him with. And I just added in him here. You'll see now my client's information, not just their email, but also all of their preferences and things I need to know about them will automatically pop right in, which is awesome. A few other things to note. You can add now in your itinerary, you can add in a photo, for example, of the actual itinerary. For the sake of time, I'm going to skip right over that and just bring you guys back over here and over to this main dashboard. Before I take you to another tab, you should note that you'll have up here details related to the bookings that you guys are working on, all of the upcoming activities, and kind of the details of what's going on in that trip, as well as any past activity, meaning what you've worked on within that itinerary. So now let's actually go build this itinerary together. Again, we said this is going to be a cruise. Before I actually build it out, to point out a few things that you should note, you'll see here all the details of the actual days of the trip, right? So those are all been laid out. And I also have this kind of like guide over here to my right of all the different things I can use and build and do. You'll see up here we have an AI assist tool, which is actually incredible. You can use this for building itinerary components. You can also import trip data, like if you have a PDF from a supplier, you can actually just upload it here and submit it, and it'll add it into your itinerary for you. You can also create a destination guide or a packing list. So, for example, I have two gluten intolerant travelers. They're a couple. They're in their 50s and they're really looking for something that's super authentic, but they really don't like seafood. You can add in all that information. It'll help create a destination guide based on the destination that you're going. So it's really intelligent in the way that it can kind of build that out for you. But I'm actually going to show you now, bringing in those kind of trip details to help you build this out. You'll see over here you have library items, which means your library or even the Tern community library, either or, which means you can take things that are already pre-created for you, or you can also build things out from scratch as well, which is completely fine. I'm going to show you a cruise here because we decided this is going to be a cruise trip. I'm going to drag over the cruise library item. You'll notice everything that's over here is drag and drop. So anytime you're trying to add flights, activities, whatever you name it, it's drag and drop right onto the date of what you're going to do and use it for. Now, after I dragged and dropped that cruise itinerary detail, you'll notice that these popped up. There is something like, and I mess this up all the time, but Courtney said it was something around like 40 something cruises that are available in real time on our platform. You be able to see river cruises, ocean cruises, you name it, and also even down to the cabins and layout types and things like that. So virtually almost every single cruise is live on our cruise library. Now, that's a lot of cruises, and I'm not quite sure which one I'm going to quote them yet. If you did, you could always just search and wither it down and find the right cruise. But for me, we're going to take this actually over the filter option. And I want to cut this down a little bit, this list. I actually know based on cruise type that I want a river cruise. So you can actually select to only show river cruises, for example. You'll see here all these different examples. And I actually think I want to do this Christmas on the Rhine itinerary. I always wanted to take a Viking cruise. I'm going to add that one to the itinerary, and it'll pre-populate this cruise right in for you. You'll see here all of the cruise details and all of the ports and where we're going. Of course, you can edit these, adjust these however you like, but it's done for you really simply. These will have just the ports and all that kind of information. The one thing you have to make sure that you do when you're adding in these trip details is that you then add the cabins if you're making this itinerary, right? And so when we add in these cruise details, we're going to also drag in the lodging item. So this is the one thing to keep note of if you're ever building a cruise. You need to make sure you drag in the lodging item to actually indicate what the actual rooms are going to be. Now, because we created a cruise already and that cruise was already in there, Tern already knows that this lodging is really a cabin. You don't need to recreate, a specific like cabin set type. It already knows this is going to be on the cruise, which means it already showed down here that the cruise ship and all the details about the cruise, you can add in a ton more information about the general info, anything that you like. And also, of course, you can save a lot of this information in your library as well, should you ever need things like that saved. But I'm going to go over to the room section specifically because this is going to be lodging, and I'm going to show you some pretty awesome things. First, over here, you could see the search cabin options, and we're actually going to automatically see all of the different room types that are available on this cruise. So maybe I talk to a client and they think, you know what, I think we're really just going to want a pretty simple stateroom, nothing fancy. Let's just add that one in. You'll see it pre-selects and adds in all of this information for you, but of course you can always go in and edit at any time. If you're like, this is great, but I actually want to add in some pictures, I want to add in more descriptions, things like that, you can edit and add any of this information. Our editor tools are pretty fantastic. We actually made some recent updates to these, and you can always add and edit some information in any of this. You'll also see that you'll have your travelers pre-populated in. And if you need to have multiple rooms, because maybe you're traveling with multiple cabins worth of people, you can always add in those rooms here and assign the travelers based on which cabin they're staying in. We also have something called options, which I'll show you in a little bit more depth later, but something to just point out here is that these options are a great way for you to give a client just that, an option of which room they'd like to stay in. So when you send them an itinerary and you're asking them which one they'd like to stay in, they actually have the option of seeing the different categories proposed against each other. And that's a really, really great way to better serve your clients, also help you though generate more revenue for your business. A lot of what we do and what we're trying to build is making sure that you're actually able to make more money out of using Tern, but in a respectable, unconfrontational way. I'll show you what that looks like in practice in just a bit, but we're going to keep this as is for now, just so I can show you a few more things. If you click over to media, you'll see the photos actually preload in. You can add in more photos additionally as well, of course. You can also just paste in the actual image. Sorry, guys, my monitor turned off for a second there. Hopefully we're all good and you can still hear me. And you can copy and paste the image in here. You can also copy and paste the actual image link as well, which is great. You can add in documents, of course, too, as well as booking and pricing, which I want to show you a few, important things around booking and pricing. I know we had some questions about pricing earlier, so hopefully this answers part of your questions, and show this up in here. So just showing here in pricing, you can price things based as an individual item or as part of a trip package. The reason why I show you this is because maybe you're selling something as part of a third-party supplier, and they're showing everything as part of one group rate for that entire itinerary. You can adjust the pricing based on like a package, but also let's say you're doing for this cruise, you want to do it based on per person, per room, per flat rate, whatever you like. For this, I'm going to do it actually on a per person basis, just to show you what that looks like. And let's say it's $1,000 a person. Scrolling down here a little bit extra, you'll also see the details about our credit card authorization and payment. We've set up and worked with some pretty incredible lawyers and our tech team to make sure that when you are collecting authorization for specific bookings and payments, that we're doing it in a way that really truly protects you, but also your clients as well. We have taken many steps to make sure that this is the best possible way for you to get these authorizations done, but also make it super seamless at the same time for you. So I'll show you what that looks like in practice. You could show the different ways that you want to do payment and the payment schedule. So for example, if you're okay with collecting a deposit and then a final balance, you could set it up in that way where you have a deposit amount and the final deposit date, and final payment dates down here as well. You could do installments, etc., but I'm going to just keep it in full for right now. You can also add partial payments. Now, something you'll notice down here is that you have to add information to get this activity ready. This is Tern's way of saying, hey there, you can send this to get a credit card authorization once you fill out this information. So when you fill in, you'll see here, you have to add in the booking supplier field to make this ready for authorization. What that means is down here in the booking details, you're going to need to select the supplier that this is actually going to be booked through. At this point, I'm sure you've already price quoted this. You know which supplier you're going to be booking through. We're just going to go directly through Viking, just given the fact that we already know who we're working with on this and who we're going to be billing this through. You could also put it through, let's say, classifications or another supplier that you're working with. You can also add the supplier's terms and conditions, supplier cancellation policy, and also adjust things like your commission and confirmation receipts, things like that. Now, important to note, when I put in the booking details, it said it's ready for authorization. That means I can ship this off to the client now. The rest of this information likely wouldn't come until after it's actually booked, at which point you can then actually mark this as booked in your Tern platform. So you can keep track of what is booked, what's pending, what needs payment, etc. That'll also show up in real time on the actual overview dashboard of this trip, because you want to make sure that you're seeing the status of everything and all the payments. So once something's booked, of course, you do want to mark that off. I'm not going to do that just now though, because I do want to make sure I can actually show you this process. So we added this room. Fantastic. They can see now all the different parts of their cruise. Let's say we also want to add in an activity though as well. Let's do it for this date. You'll see in here when I drag that in, this is my current library of everything that I've added into my itinerary library, but I also have the Tern community as well, which means that I can work on or use the activity items that have been shared to the broader Tern community. Also, if you're part of an agency, you'll also be able to share details between each other in your shared with me section. Now you have that Tern community details. Maybe I see something that's useful for me and I want to add it in, which would be great. I think for me, I think we're just going to add in a day at leisure. How about that? We're going to just be enjoying this kind of Christmas time market. We'll leave a day at leisure and go from there. Again, you have all these other options of what you can add to your itinerary from flights to where we're sending you and your clients flight change and updates at any time so on our app. And you'll have all the other details in there as well. I want to take a brief moment, just check the chat, see if there's any questions from you guys, and go from there. Yeah, we have a quick question from Eugene about autofill on forms for clients. So you do not need, once you collect a client's information once and they fill in all that kind of intake information that you collect from them, at which point you can collect things like loyalty program from that form. You can collect whatever you want. That form actually can be completely customized to whatever you want. Actually, sorry, let me show you my library. I'll get to this in a second just to show you this in more depth. But the one that I used was this inquiry form where I only had details like name. But you can add in other details, such as where would you like to travel to? What would you like to depart? What are some preferences you have? You can even add a scheduler so that person can book a time with you right then and there in the scheduler as well. In my instance, I didn't collect that in the example I showed, but you always can. So Eugene, with your question, you don't have to collect this information every time. In fact, that information, once it's filled out once, will show up here in your contact session section on the platform. So I showed you before a little bit about traveler Grace Van Hollebeke. You'll see here this is all the details that I can collect this all in one go. You can also go and edit this at any given time if you get more or new information about a client. But important to note is that when you're just attaching a client to an itinerary or a trip, you will not need to re-add all of that information or have them refill out that form. So keep it super seamless. The goal is for you to have to collect this kind of information and input it and add it once. Nothing more complicated than that. Hopefully that answers your question, Eugene. Cindy asked about that destination guide and draft packing list. That AI tool for you is a way to help you basically get a full itinerary or destination guide for a trip without having to research all of that yourself. We put a lot of time and effort into building out that AI support tool, and you could type things in such as create a gluten-free, actually, let me do destination guide here. You can enter destination guide like dining in Paris. I'll just use Paris as an example. And you can add in descriptions saying like, create a gluten-free restaurant guide for a couple in Paris. They don't like seafood and they really like authentic French cuisine. That would be an example where you can then create that destination guide and have all of that. Sorry, I didn't put that there. And you can have that then submit and create that destination guide for you. It's going to take a second to load, so I'm going to keep going here, and you could keep going about building your itinerary while that loads and creates it for you. And then it'll actually show up in your itinerary as well. So that's a great tool. Hopefully, Sydney, that answers your question as well. Stefan did mention, oh, here you go, while we're at it, that gluten-free dining guide in Paris. Here are some of those details that it created for us. So it knows that we're going to be in Paris during this time of year in December. It knows kind of that overview for you. It gave me some top gluten-free restaurants, some experiences, some shopping, you name it. But it's smart about the way it recommends information to you. It's not telling you like France is beautiful in the summer when we're in the middle of going in December, things like that. So you can always then save that and add that to your itinerary. So hopefully that was helpful and gave a quick little introduction there. Awesome, great. Perfect. Going back here to the itinerary. Stefan did mention that for advisors, if you're the client on the trip, you need to use your personal email for your own travel. If you have your agency, account under Tern, for example, my email under Tern is grace@tern.travel. When I add myself as a traveler, make sure I use my personal email because the system will be sending you emails as if you're both an advisor and a traveler, and it's going to be very confusing. Stefan noticed that that's a smart way to go about it. So thank you for that mention. And great. Deborah, hopefully I answered your question also about supplier pricing. So she had asked, hypothetically, I have a client where we have determined their destination. I found a supplier and have a price to give back to the client. How does Tern now get involved in that process? What do I do with that? Hopefully the itinerary I just showed you kind of takes you through that step. You can add in those rooms or those hotel stays or the car transfers or whatever it is that you're quoting for them in the itinerary and attach the pricing to it. Now, Tern can charge and do your service fees through the platform. Obviously, you're going to be doing the authorization to actually then go ahead and separately pay the suppliers. You're paying the supplier separately through the authorization, if that's what your question related to the pricing. But hopefully, the actual process of creating this is a good step. Now, Deborah, the second half of your question is to actually then go show you what you could do to share this with your client so that they can actually then go ahead and say, yes, I want to book this and propose it to them. So we're now at that point, right? We've created the itinerary. We have a decent amount of details in here. We made sure that it's ready for authorization as well. You can even click and preview this itinerary of what it'll look like. And a few things to point out, it creates this beautiful itinerary for you. You'll see you'll have your business branding on the top right-hand corner here. It has my designs that I set up from my business kind of like backdrop photo, as well as my logo, my headshot, has details about me and my business, my contact info, and it will even ask the client to then go ahead and either approve the itinerary or payment or whatever the next step is. Just scroll down, you can see some amazing design updates in the near future as well to those apps. Just going to keep scrolling through here to show you guys. Now, again, I didn't add a ton of info in here, so I'm assuming you guys would add much more in. But once you're ready, you say, you know, that looks great. Let's send this to the client. You can then go ahead and publish this itinerary. It'll give you the option to then email the client with the itinerary, at which point you can even apply a template that you might have created so that you don't have to like retype this email every time. Again, we want to get rid of as many clicks as possible for you guys. So you could just apply a template rather than recreating this every time. Also, you could set up an automation so that let's say like sometimes when a trip is published, it could send certain automations or do certain things with you, etc. Or you could just send them the link. So I'm going to copy this link here just to show you what it'll look like. And this is the published itinerary. So you'll see here we have, again, that business branding. It'll show you all the details of the itinerary. And I'm actually ready to go ahead and authorize payment. So now at this point, I have the option for my French balcony stateroom. Maybe I want to go ahead and take a look at the details there. I can see that. I can, skip the item, whatever, add your card details, but also to allow you to add in your terms and conditions. This is something that you set up in your business settings, which I'll show you in just a moment, as well as an e-signature. And this is a great way to protect yourself from chargebacks and also from clients being confused about like, what did I agree to? We also then track time they've approved of this, keep this live every time in the trip overview, and then you have 30 days to make that authorized payment. Feel free to ask any questions that you guys might have about that. Hopefully that's useful. Checking the chat briefly. Okay, great. Okay, Eugene had a follow-up question about those forms that we talked about. He said, when I collect the basics first form and then I go back later for more information, do they have to start all over? So the beautiful thing about this is that you can do whatever you want. You can create forms that are for like, let's say you have an intake form where just their name and their email is like a first step when a client meets you. And then you could have a second form later on that says, okay, I already have this client's info, but now I need to collect all their passport and all that other info. You'll be able to send out a different form that would have more questions or more info on it, and you don't need to recollect the same info every time. Obviously, you want them to give you their name and email. That's the only thing that you'd want to make sure that you duplicate so that you know who it is submitting this information. And then if they give that same email, it'll automatically populate in their profile as well, which just makes it super easy for you to keep track of all of that. If I was the client as well, I could go ahead and approve the itinerary, and it would actually let you know that you're ready to make that booking as well. So you can see here, now I'm going back into the trip details. And then you'll see here now we have all the details of the bookings, what stage they're in, activities as well, it was published, et cetera, et cetera. And you can kind of review the full overview of the itinerary. A few other things to point out here just while we're here is that you, in addition to your overview in the actual itinerary, you'll also have this tasks section, which basically becomes your task management tool anytime you're working within an itinerary. So this task is related to this trip. You may need to add a task. I can add things in from a template. You can templatize your entire business. There's so many. I know in here somewhere from Modern Traveler. She's done an amazing job on making sure that her entire business is built out of templates, so she doesn't have to recreate everything every time. So shout out to you, Lauren. And or you could do a one-off. So maybe I just like a client texted me that they'd really like some niche thing. So you could add that in here, or just remember to book car transfer. Maybe it's a one-off thing that you need to remember. You can add that in. It can be based relative, meaning to like the time of something or set number of days, etc. You could set a due date for it. So for me, I need to remember this in a week and add a description in, etc. So just to show you what that looks like here, that's already been saved. And now you'll see it here show up in my tasks, which is awesome. It's super easy and seamless to keep track of what needs to be done in each trip. But you may then say, Grace, well, this is great, but what about all of my tasks? I don't have to click in every itinerary. Well, the good thing is that you could click into your tasks section up here and see all of your current tasks that are going on. You can filter based on trip, when they're due, see what's been completed already, etc. And that's a really seamless way to like have a task management tool within your business and within Tern. You can also have them work in a broader workflow. So down here, when I was showing you earlier, just a few other things to work through. You could see down in the finances section, everything from the booking details and what the total status of payments, what's been authorized, etc. You could see your authorizations in here. So we already have our authorization is ready for this. You could see insurance. I know there's some questions about insurance here. You can add in an insurance option as well, or you could choose in the option of no, choosing not to insure, etc. So that's where you'd take care of insurance, and then service fees as well. I have not set up my Stripe account to connect here, so that's why you're not seeing it, but you'll be able to charge service fees in here. And then to jump down to the more section, you can attach documents, obviously. You can also have Tern set up to connect to your email account. So if you want to send an email to a client, or if you sent that itinerary that we published, it would actually show up here in your email section. We also have that integration with email providers. So this will actually send an email from your account, not from some like bot Tern account or anything like that. It's coming from you, and it'll show in your sent folder in your email. There's a form section in case there's form responses associated with this particular trip. And then there's automations, and you could see the overall activity. I'm going to go over and show you a little bit more about this in a second. Feel free to throw any questions that you guys might have based on some of this as well. Correct, Dawn. The question was, a task is just for the travel agent to have rather than the traveler. Absolutely. The task is an internal tool for you. If you would like to set up, though, which is one of my favorite parts of this platform, if you would like to set up emails to go out to clients, reminding them about things, you're absolutely able to do that, not just as a one-off email, but you can also set it up in your automations and workflows section of the platform. So here in your library section, we have obviously all of our itinerary building details, but you also have your library section of the forms that you can create. So one of the questions about different form types, you can create all of those templated forms for you here in your library section. You can see all of your email templates, which you can create in here. And you can have task templates as well. Now, the reason why you might want some task templates is because you could loop them into some broader automations and workflows. So I have one set up that is a one-day payment reminder that's going to go out to clients. And just to show you this as an example, it'll be set, I set this to active. It's set up so that when a payment is due, one day before that payment is due, it'll send an email to the client and it'll show this. And I've set this up myself to let a client know it has all the like, kind of nuances of the actual trip in here. And it'll be automatically set up so that anytime a client, their payment is due, it'll send that out. And of course, you can build that into broader workflows as well. Now, workflows and automations and tasks is in and of itself its own beast, from the sense of this can totally revolutionize your business. We do a ton of trainings on these. We have a whole community of Tern ambassadors as well as Tern and Learn educational videos that show you how to do this in full. And we're constantly doing live webinars and demos as well, showing you how to get really, really good at this. So don't let this overwhelm you. We have like a plethora of resources, but also if you're familiar with the company Lucia, which is the company that actually started before joining Tern. Lucia has hundreds of freelancers that Tern now has in their ecosystem that'll do a lot of this for you if you'd like to just have someone set this up for you. So just a quick flag there in case you're like, I love all this, but I'm not quite sure how to set it up. You can also take advantage of the Tern community, which means all of the advisors, the thousands of advisors that use Tern, you could share your workflows or tasks or automations or emails into the Tern community and for other advisors to be able to take advantage of. So for example, this workflow that Jade created, I liked it. And so you could just save it into your library for you to use in the future, which is awesome. And then you could, of course, automate it or change it or edit it yourself. Awesome. We're moving right along, which is so great. I already showed you guys kind of emails and contacts. While we're kind of at this stopping point, any other questions that I can answer for you guys that I haven't answered just yet? When choosing a cruise to build an itinerary, do we select the cruise line we found with the supplier, or does Tern have the suppliers already loaded? We have the suppliers already loaded. You can decide which one you want to work with. We do not, though, show the pricing. So that would be the moment where you go find out partner pricing with your supplier partner, or if you're booking direct with the cruise line or whoever you're booking with, just because so many advisors have different rates and you might get a different price. And so 9 times out of 10, you'd have to change the price that already pre-populates in if we were to pull that from what's like a rack rate. So we allow you to just fill in the pricing, but we already have all the suppliers preloaded in for you. Same with hotels as well. Um, Betty asked how to change the amount after something is paid. I'm curious, Betty, if your question is related to suppliers or like kind of the advisor fee, because if you're paying to a supplier, that would be between you and the supplier. If you need to change the payment amount, if a cruise was repriced. So if you need to change the authorizations, you can go in and always adjust or change authorizations, if issue for new authorizations or things like that if you needed to do that. Hopefully that answers your questions. But you can always go in and just do a new authorization and cancel an old one or something like that. Hopefully that's helpful. Any other questions I can answer for you guys while we keep this rolling? I already kind of showed you the context section. Again, this is where you can update all your clients' details and it's carried out throughout the platform. So you're not constantly reintroducing this same information over and over and over again. And then now I'm going to show you what is, Betty, I see your hand raised. Feel free to throw the question in the chat. And if we have time at the end, I can totally take you off mute. One of the things, yeah, I see a couple hands raised. If you don't mind throwing that in the chat or the Q&A section, I'll be able to see your question there. Andrea, yes, if a supplier is not listed, it can absolutely be added. So of course you can add anything like that on your own as well. Continuing on, I want to show you guys now how you can actually make more money with Tern. Yes, we're a back-end kind of platform for you to run your entire business, share itineraries with clients. There's a client app, all these amazing things. But I want to show you now what it looks like to actually make more money with Tern. And so here you'll see this kind of beautiful landing page for a bachelorette cruise that my theoretical travel agency is planning. You'll notice this doesn't look quite like a typical itinerary. It's more of like a landing page, some might say, or a website. You'll see here we have the details of these beautiful photos. We have my business information. We also have some like fun details. We also have itinerary details, but also total details about this like amazing bachelorette that we're potentially sending these clients on. Everything from sample itinerary to where you'll stay, what's included, dress code, you name it. You can add in literally anything you want. And that's because this is our landing page product for group trips. So if you ever plan groups, something I want to show you a few main things to know. If you don't plan groups, that's totally fine, but I'm going to call out a few things that are valid just across any itinerary. The landing page is the only thing that's like truly specific to groups. But some of the options that I'll show, that's relevant no matter what. So just keep an eye out for that. So when you have these group trips, you actually, this is from the client point of view, have the opportunity to say, yeah, I love the idea of going on this bachelorette, or yeah, I'd love to go on this group safari for women in, December, whatever it is. You can go ahead and share this as like a landing page with anyone. You could share this on social media, your website, and emails, you name it. And if someone was to click this link, they'd see all of this details and they'd say, oh, this is super interesting. What would it look like to actually go on this trip? Maybe I'll book it. Well, I've set this up so that this is the form where I collect their inquiry information for this trip. So again, I'm going to show you and put back in my information. And I'm going to use the email that I used previously just so you could see again what it looks like to have my information pre-populating correctly. So I'm gonna go solo on this trip. I think it's gonna be a fun time with my girlfriends, but I'm just booking myself. Anyone else then can also take the form and go fill it out for themselves for them to come on this trip. You'll see something now, and this is true across any itineraries that you build, not just groups, but I'm just showing it in this context. You now have the option to share options, meaning, let's say we want to give you the option of going on an activity. In this instance, it shows multiple activities. Let's say even if there was just one, you have the option to say, yeah, I'll opt into that cruise excursion, or yeah, I'll opt into that tour of this wine tour while I'm in Napa on this group trip. You have the ability to share optional things for clients to opt into. And we've seen so many clients make thousands of dollars more on just having the opportunity to use options. So let's say I'm going on this bachelorette and I'm like, yeah, this cheap tour looks awesome. Let's add that in. Let's select that one. I think that looks good for me. Going next, I also have the choice of choosing options on rooms, which again, this is true of any itinerary or any type of hotel lodging or cruise lodging. You have the ability to show options of the actual room type. So I have the option to see a cruise loft suite or a solarium suite. You know what? I'm feeling really bougie on this trip. Maybe I'll select this room. I also maybe want to share multiple room types. I can have multiple rooms, and select different types for that. Something else you'll notice is that you'll see the number of rooms remaining. So if you're working within a room block for an example, you'll be able to show how many of each room type you have. And you'll see that this has been submitted successfully. What that did, and now I'm going to show you the advisor side of this so you can understand kind of in context what all this does, is this is back on my main dashboard. And Cindy, your question about linking from Project Expedition, I'm not 100% sure. I really want to say yes, but I'll check for you in a hot second. Just give me a second there. But again, if for any reason there's a suppliers not already loaded in there, you can add them in manually, of course, too. Now here in this dashboard, you'll see I have this kind of cruise to Bermuda, but it has this thing called subtrips. This is a group itinerary, which you can create. Everything I just showed you, you can create by clicking this new trip button. And when you're filling out the details of it, let's say cruise to Bermuda, we pick the dates, etc., you can change it from a regular trip to a group trip. And what that'll do is it'll give you the option of basically creating kind of this main itinerary for people to choose from. And then when you start booking with specific travelers, they'll start creating sub trips under that. Here in your filter settings, you can also filter out to show or not show these sub trips as well, in case you ever want to like filter out the view so you don't have hundreds of these sub trips on your dashboard. But this kind of main itinerary, just to click in here and show you a few key things that are different from a regular itinerary. You'll see here on the dashboard is actually just all of the sub trips of the people that have either filled out an inquiry form or meaning this group trip. And each of these itineraries are separate. They're completely their own itinerary. I can click this and it'll take me to my individual cruise itinerary that I was showing you earlier. So see here, this logged in, everything that I just filled out automatically showed up in here. But I want to look at that kind of broader, big lens of that bigger group trip from the kind of zoomed out perspective of the main itinerary. And you'll see here on the left-hand side a few key differences. You'll see in the itinerary section, this doesn't look too different. You have the ability to add in everything as is normally. To point out briefly, when you saw those options that I showed you on the itinerary when we were proposing them, that's done by in your trip component section, just clicking options. And it'll allow you to add in different details here of the options to sell to a client. You could do that as many times over as you'd like. You can also just not have, you can have just one instead of more than one, um, and give people the option of just saying yes or no to something. But, oh, I mean, sorry, that would be if you want to make something optional rather than options. But yeah, just to show you that briefly there. But the most important thing to note is that this landing page section, remember when I showed you that bachelorette landing page kind of website before? This is how you create that. So over in that general overview itinerary, you'll have landing page where you can add in all these amazing details that basically creates this as a website for you to sell this main trip, group trip. You'll see over here the ability to enable it, add in a self-service sign up, and you can edit the sign up form. So you can, I know there's a bunch of questions about sign up forms, specifically for like this group trip. Maybe you have some specific questions that you want to ask. You can always drag and drop, same as everything else, drag and drop trip elements, maybe budget if you're trying to get a better understanding of that. You can always add in and remove all these different details. I'm going to save and close that. And then once I'm finished building out this kind of group landing page, I would publish it. You can copy that link, and that's what takes you to this broader page. Awesome. Well, I showed you a bunch of those details. Again, because this is a group trip, it'll show up slightly differently across the board, but in a great way because this is kind of the zoomed out group trip perspective. Whereas when you're in that overview, you can click into these sub trips and view them as a normal itinerary and treat them as such. And of course, you can have activities and workflows still tied to all of them. So think about how many activities and tasks you'd have to do. You don't even have to write any of these down on a to-do list. It can be all automated. The one thing to note for any group trips is that you want to create that main trip itinerary before sending out the ability for anyone to actually book it. Because once you start having people book with you and you make changes to this itinerary, it won't change for any of the sub trips that currently exist. So for every reason, you need to make big adjustments. Like you want to make sure that you have all of the options ready to go, all the pricing, things like that. All right, we showed you some group trips. We showed you all of the details of building an itinerary. We showed you quite a bit of the actual process of, setting up the back end of your business. I want to show you, feel free also while I'm doing this to throw any questions in the chat for the last few minutes we have remaining. But I want to show you here just in your account settings, the ability to see what you can add and set up within your business. So under account settings, obviously you have all of your information about you. You could set up notifications, your security and two-factor authentication, your subscription. And then under business settings, I want to call out that this is where you actually get to set up not just the details of your business, but you can also set up your branding. So kind of that button that you saw over here, for example, it's in that nice purple. That's because it's a part of my branding. And you want to make sure that that fits your business style. So you can upload your own logo, a cover photo, your own coloring. And that's where also you can set up your invoicing default memo. You could set up whether you're part of a host or consortium, your standard commission rates. And also over here, under business settings as a broader segment, is where you can also add in things like your terms and conditions. So you'd want to work with your lawyer, make sure that you add in the right terms and conditions and get that published so that when a client's agreeing to terms and conditions, you can always have those updated immediately there. You can adjust those different trip statuses that you saw on your main dashboard. You can adjust what you're showing or what you're not showing. You can allow Tern to do credit card authorizations. And we already talked about service fees as well briefly, but you can charge your service fees through Tern, and that's where you would set that up. Email and scheduling, you can allow customers to actually book a meeting with you automatically through your process of working on the platform, and you could set up your account and emails there. And then one of my favorite parts is that if you invite friends to join Tern, or if you have a friend joining Tern, ask them for their referral code before starting with us, or share yours with a friend because you'll both receive $20 in credit to your account as well. So we brought you through kind of a full Tern process. Hopefully I answered some of your questions. Would love to know if you guys have any additional questions that I can answer before we wrap it up today.